Hello, I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute, an Institute for the Humanities, an alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. The purpose of this broadcast is to give some introductory remarks to the Ching series that we'll be sticking with for the next couple weeks and months here in our open event series at the Institute. And before we jump into the topic at hand and kind of prime the pump for the discussion, which will happen off air, just one announcement, most appropriate to this, is to take a look at our open events series and to consider participating. This is one of several variable ways that one may participate in the life of the Institute. It's not just for our full-time students or even our monthly students, but even more informally with these open events. And again, stay in the rhythm of things, stay up to speed with different humanities related topics. And indeed, as I'm finding out with the I Ching, come across topics you wouldn't have come across necessarily. And that, I think, is the beauty of a school environment, digital as it may be, in person as it may be. But with these open events and with the kind of I won't say the randomness of topics, but I do find as an educationalist, I suppose, or a pedagogue, that we are now really being asked to justify, as a society, as schoolmen are being asked to justify why we exist. And that's a great thing, to go back to principles. And I do suggest with these open events and the serendipity, and that's the word I wanted, the serendipity of topics, that this is one of the great things that formal study can provide, that one comes across things that, contrary to our YouTube feeds, isn't curated explicitly and neurotically to our own interest. We come across things we wouldn't have otherwise. So with the I Ching, and so with all of our open events. So check that out. That's down below in the description. And what I wanted to do in these few minutes here before we transition to our private chit chat, which always attends these open events, is to just read a few of these paragraphs from an introductory text. And all of this, again, is to prime the pump when it comes to this topic, Oracle and Muse intro to the I Ching. Okay. So I'm going to read some here and we'll just jag for a few minutes. The Book of Changes, I Ching in Chinese, is unquestionably one of the most important books in the world's literature. Its origin goes back to mythological antiquity, and it has occupied the attention of the most eminent scholars of China down to the present day. Nearly all that is greatest and most significant in the 3,000 years of Chinese cultural history has either taken its inspiration from this book or has exerted an influence on the interpretation of its text. Therefore, it may safely be said that the seasoned wisdom of thousands of years has gone into the making of the I Ching. Small wonder, then, that both of the two branches of Chinese philosophy, Confucianism and Taoism, have their common roots here. The book sheds new light on many a secret hidden in the often puzzling modes of thought of that mysterious sage, Lao Tse, and of his pupils, as well as on many ideas that appear in the Confucian tradition as axioms accepted without further examination. And just with my own day behind me, just one of the things that strikes me with this opening paragraph is the length of Chinese culture and the length of time that we need when it comes to culture. In fact, the word comes, from cultus and cultivation, cultivator. The length of time we have to develop a culture, and that was something that came up in a previous discussion today. But we see the I Ching, in a sense, as a fruit of culture, if you'll stick with the agricultural analogy. And um, the, we have that the length of time. That's something, if as a schoolman, we have to kind of explain and justify why we exist in a very fast moving field and fast moving world. Not only do we get to have serendipity or provide serendipity to formal studies, but also when it comes to the idea of culture, um, having that stability. So that's one of the things that strikes me here is just the idea of the I Ching being the fruit of, no, not 5 minutes, not a commercial break, but the fruit of a culture that's 3,000 years old. What is it about these texts that has such resonance? Speak of the classics here in the West. All of that comes to mind. Just like to read one or two more paragraphs, and then we'll transition to our chit chat privately. Indeed, not only the philosophy of China, but its science and statecraft as well, have never ceased to draw from the spring of wisdom in the I Ching. And it is not surprising that this alone, among all the Confucian classics, escaped the great burning of books under Qin Shi Hong Ti. And that is just as good a pronunciation as you could do, dear viewer. Even the commonplace of everyday life in China are saturated with its influence. In going through the streets of a Chinese city, one will find here and there at a street corner a fortune teller sitting behind a neatly covered table, brush and tablet in hand, ready to draw from the ancient book of wisdom pertinent counsel and information on life's minor perplexities. Not only that, but the very signboards adorning the houses, perpendicular wooden panels done in gold on black lacquer, are covered with inscriptions whose flowery language again and again recalls thoughts and quotations from the I Ching. Even the policymakers of so modern a state, hyper-modern state as Japan, distinguished for their astuteness, do not scorn to refer to it for counsel in difficult situations. And I lately came across someone who made the claim that here in the West with the Bible, if a phone book was held up in the Western tradition, in the Western culture, with the same force that the Bible did, people would find meanings, or the Quran for the Arabs. And I don't think that's the case. I think these texts, these classical texts, there is a certain cultural itch they scratch for people that maybe for other cultures they wouldn't scratch. And we want to consider that when we consider these classics. What is it about the I Ching as a fruit of Chinese culture that that is proper to that culture? I don't think these things are interchangeable or random. Or if you put I don't know, I'm just looking at Latin textbooks off the camera here. If you put a Latin textbook in Africa, it would all of a sudden take on the significance of the I Ching or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. I think these things are proper fruits of proper cultures, but they're not all interchangeable. Okay, the final paragraph, and then we'll switch gears here to some off-camera chit-chat. In the course of time, owing to great repute for wisdom attaching to the Book of Changes, a large body of occult doctrines, hidden, occult just means hidden, extraneous to it, some of them possibly not even Chinese in origin, have come to be connected with its teachings. The Qin and Han dynasties saw the beginning of a formalistic natural philosophy that sought to embrace the entire world of thought in a system of number symbols, combining a rigorously consistent dualistic yin-yang doctrine with the doctrine of the 5 stages of change taken from the Book of History. It forced the Chinese philosophical thinking more and more into a rigid formalization, and increasingly hair-splitting Kabbalistic speculations came to envelop the Book of Changes in a cloud of mystery And by forcing everything of the past and the future into this system of numbers created for the I Ching the reputation of being a book of unfathomable profundity. These speculations are also to blame for the fact that the seeds of a free Chinese natural science, which undoubtedly existed from the time of Moti and his pupils, were killed and replaced by a sterile tradition of writing and reading books that was wholly removed from experience. This is the reason why China has for so long presented to Western eyes a picture of hopeless stagnation. All right, so this final paragraph, again, these are just some preliminary thoughts to lubricate discussion. But I'm also struck with a little bit or a lot bit more knowledge of Western culture than Eastern. I'm struck by the same phenomena that happens with scholasticism in the late medieval period. It becomes initially scholasticism is this Aristotelian reappraisal of theology and, of course, being perfectly medieval, not just theology, but all of human science. And yet, very quickly, within a century, by even the 14th century, scholasticism becomes this straitjacket because people just start spitting back formularies, and it leads to all sorts of frustrations. And indeed, we say the counting the number of angels on the head of a pin, right? This idea of hair splitting, to use the word of the author here. And I know similar appeals to the redoubts of mysticism have also frustrated Arab science as well, and certain fideistic or faith-only appeals in that Islamic culture. So I'm seeing similar trends, as well as having previously set up some thoughts about the proper nature of classics proper to each culture, also certain trends across cultures here. So, with all of that being said, I hope I provided some initial thoughts to yourself. We hope you can join us for our remaining I Ching discussions. I'll reproduce this down below, but we are next meeting on this topic at the end of August on the 27th, and then also in the middle of August on the 15th, and then indeed concluding this series on the 27th. So one down, two to go, and it would be great to have some additional participants there. And you can find out the specifics by going to our open events page and downloading the little poster there and just writing us if you have any questions or queries. So with that being said, I will knock off the recording. Thank you for your attention to this topic, and we hope you can join us at a future open event. Masala.